Whereabouts do you live now? Just
in Chelmsford area now.
Oh, Chelmsford.
So I'm still in this area, and I don't think I would move outside this area now. I like it. So,
what keeps you in Essex?
well, I think obviously, regardless of what situation you're in, your kids would keep you close by, and family and everything.
Yeah.
So, for that reason, it would be stupid to move away, really.
What are your interests away from snooker?
As I say, I'm quite. I have a problem with vinyl.
A problem with vinyl?
Yeah,
you have too much of it?
I have. Well, I try. I have therapy. I go to see.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. I go to regular Vinyl Anonymous meetings. Thanks, Karen. But I relapse a lot, and that's spilled over into CDs, which, although not as romantic as vinyl, still have a collectible element to them. Really,
who's your favourite sort of artist?
Well, I do. My radio shows is loosely would be defined as prog rock. So it's my show is sort of prog rocky to some degree. So, but my favourite artist would be. Not necessarily. It's hard to say a favourite, but obviously over the years I've been quite a fan of a French band called Magma. But in my youth I was a Gentle Giant fan, and they were a big band back in the 70s.
So music is your great passion away from snooker?
Music is very strange. There is a difference between collecting music and music.
Yeah.
And I would say that that if music is a passion, the first thing would be if you play music. I would say that's a proper passion for music. Second, down the line, would be whether you are a regular concert goer, to the nth degree that concert you would say, I've got a problem with going to concerts.
Do you have that problem?
Not as much as I have for collecting the music.
Okay.
So I'm a record collector. That's the hobby.
Yeah.
But of course, I like what I collect. I don't just collect for collecting's sake.
No.
I collect stuff I like. So therefore, that's the criteria for me. But so that's mainly it, really.
Preparing for tournaments, though, I mean, typically would you spend 1, 2, 3 hours?
I don't practice as much as I used to,
no.
Because I really don't think that it's necessarily going to make much difference. But if I was building up for the World Championship, I'd be playing 2 or 3 hours a day, I suppose. But there would have been a time when I was, that was the only thing that was going on. I would have been perhaps 6, something like that. So things do change, and I don't really think anybody really knows how much you should be practicing, whether you're a footballer, darts player, golfer, chess player. You can only really do what you think's right. But there's no hard and fast rule.
When did you first pick up a cue?
In earnest, about 14 and a half, 15.
Okay.
And that would be considered late for today's kids and prospective professionals. But at the time, it wasn't really that easy to get access to full-size tables when you were underage.
Yeah.
So. And I started my snooker life in a working men's social club environment, and a lot of those places wouldn't have allowed kids in. But I was quite lucky. My father was quite active as a team player in the local club, so I got a little bit of preferential treatment. And I was fairly tall for my age, which also was. It came into it. It's bizarre.
No, absolutely.
You'd have to go back to the times of working men's clubs and social clubs. But nowadays, of course, more actual snooker clubs that would allow a kid in of any age with their parent. That wasn't necessarily the case back then.
When you were leading up to the 1981 World Championships, the first one that you won, how did you feel going into that tournament? Because I think you won the UK Open, haven't you?
Yeah, I was on the crest of a wave as far as everything was going right for me. I was the hottest property within the game, and it was considered to be not necessarily a formality that I won the World Championship, but that it was highly likely that I was going to dominate things. So if I had to try and envisage how I felt, which is really hard to do, I would imagine I felt a certain amount of expectation mixed with a growing amount of confidence that I was unbeatable. But winning the UK Championship in 1980, November, was a big stepping stone to me thinking that I was capable of winning a big one within the game. But it was all very new as well, because things had happened pretty quickly. From September '78, as a young player, quite quickly then becoming the dominant force was a bit of a sort of adjustment of mindset.
Who really inspired you from the 60s or 70s?
I got all my snooker inspiration from my father, because he was my sort of
what was your dad's
coach, mentor.
What was his name?
His name's Bill.
Sorry, not
No,
Bill.
Yeah, he's not changed it. Yeah. He became my coach, my overseer, and he became my snooker partner effectively. So the actual inspiration of a professional.
Yeah.
I admired Ray Reardon, who was the previous multi-world champion.
6 times he did it, didn't he?
Yeah. But then, of course, I started to play him, so therefore it changes, that. And previous to that, the book that I basically used to try and hone my skills as far as technique was the original one written by a guy called Joe Davis.
How's the last 30 years passed for you? I mean, do you remember it vividly, that game?
I don't remember anything. I remember what I did last week. I don't think people do, really. I mean, if you move on a few years to the 1985 final with Dennis Taylor, I'd already won the World Championship 3 times, and I was expected to beat Dennis, and I was well in front, and then all of a sudden the wheel fell off. The only reason I remember that is because they've shown the last few balls, and the last frame is available on video, and they've showed it. I wouldn't have remembered it otherwise. So people's memories, I mean, perhaps some people are better at having memories, but I've never been that good at dragging stuff up from the past, and perhaps actually that's to my benefit. Perhaps there's sort of certain skills you need to play snooker very well, and one of them's not having a good memory. Perhaps it's better to not have a good memory, so you haven't got all that stuff lurking of shots you've missed in the past. You just get on with it, live in the present. So the last 30 years has been an absolute hoot, because it's just been fantastic, and the amount of fun I've had from the game has just been superb. It's just can't quite believe you wouldn't actually believe it would have been possible when I first turned professional that you would have made a profession out of snooker, because it wasn't really that big then.
It was massive, wasn't it? Snooker was massive in the 80s. Yeah. How do you compare the state of snooker then to the state of snooker now?
The state of snooker now is quite fascinating, because for a number of years now the UK public has considered that the game is in decline. And I'm not sure where it's up to in the UK, if it's declining, if it's stabilised at a lower level because of diversity of entertainment. But what I do know now is that what happened back in the 80s is now being replicated across the world.
Yeah.
So I reckon we've now got, I don't know how many times more people watching the game on a regular basis. You can tell by the hits on the websites for the World Championship that's going to be happening in a couple of weeks' time.
Yeah.
We're getting worldwide interest.
You must have been very disappointed you missed out on this year, because it's the first time you've missed out since you turned professional.
No. Missed out 2 other times.
Oh, have you? Well,
somewhere in the around the turn of the sure, exactly. I lost. I had to play 2 qualifiers. I was out of the top 16 for a while. I actually got back in again, but while I was out, I had to play 2 years. I had to play a qualifying match, and I lost. I can't remember what years they were. Yeah. So this would be my 3rd year since 1979 not playing in it.
Your hopes as a player in the future?
I'm not sure.
You're not sure?
Playing wise, to enjoy it, to try and enjoy it. I don't really think there's any point in doing anything else. I had great fun last year at the Crucible, where I got to the quarterfinals. It was just unbelievable. It was so exciting, that was probably that was my best performance for ages, and it may be a long time before putting another. You don't know. You can't really. When
you can still compete though, can't you? That's the thing. You are still.
I'm still in the top 6. Still in the top 96, and we're looking at possibly the game may open up to 128 because it's a nice round number. I'm currently ranked 43, I think.
Is that your provisional rank?
No, we don't have provisional anymore.
Oh,
they've changed.
Oh, okay. So you're 43.
We now have an actual ranking that changes throughout the season. It's much better.
Well, it always made it difficult.
It's rubbish. Yeah. Where what we've done now is we've got a proper ranking. So at the end of this season, anybody who's in the top 64 remains a pro. Okay. 65 to 96 drop off, but we have immediate Q school, qualifying school.
Yeah.
That you can enter to get back on for next season.
Oh, right.
As it was before, anybody who dropped off had to wait a whole season to get back on. We've basically made it in line with, say, golf. You drop off, you can get straight back on, but you've got to enter the qualifying school.
What's the difference in standard between snooker players of your generation, the early 80s, and snooker players now?
A lot higher.
The standard's a lot higher now?
I firmly believe there is. There will be people within the game, including Willie Thorne, your favourite commentator, who doesn't really want to face that question or would say that that's not the case.
Okay.
He would make reasons for possibly the standard not being as good.
Oh, right.
It's understandable that somebody who was quite good in the past would want to actually say that the people aren't so good now.
Of course.
But I think every sport that's being competed at has improved beyond belief.
Was it at the Crucible in 1981? Because I know that it was.
It was. I think it moved to the Crucible 76.
Oh. So you've only ever played at the Crucible?
Yeah, for World Championship. Yeah. Yes, and whilst a lot of other venues have gone and been moved to other places, they actually remained at the Crucible, which I think is actually probably a good thing.
You're going to keep playing then, essentially, until
I have no reason not to
enjoy it.
Yeah. Well, I don't. It doesn't. It's not like it takes its toll.
No.
Obviously, pride comes into the equation. You don't want to get smashed up every time you play, but you're not getting hurt. So I think I'll probably play for as long as I can enjoy it.
What changes as you get older? Is the eyesight, because if you know, the commentators, don't they? They have their things. The eyesight, the ability to hold the cue straight, the stance. What's changed for you that you've noticed?
There is the argument that it would take longer for your eyes to focus between one ball and the other.
Yeah.
And then that could affect you. But I don't really think that's the real reason. I think that probably your body doesn't handle tension as well as you get older, as it does when it's younger. And probably your coordination in general is not as strong, and your muscle memory is not as good.
Yeah.
And effectively, I would imagine that certainly your central nervous system isn't as strong. I would think everything's just goes.
The final thing, really, Barry Hearn coming in, taking over World Snooker.
Yeah.
Do you think this is going to herald in the dawn of a new era?
I think it's already started. Yeah, I think he's there was a time when he was managing a lot of players, and he was involved quite a lot with the game as a promoter and a manager, that it would have been impossible for all of the other players to have allowed him to do what he's doing now.
Yeah.
Because it would have seemed like he had an invested interest in what's going on. Mainly, but basically throughout most of the sort of 2000s, he's dropped managing players, and he effectively became sort of not so much interested in snooker and more doing darts and other things.
He's never darts.
So what's happened is all of a sudden the game was struggling, and all of the players saw what Barry was effectively doing with other things, especially darts, and thinking, why haven't we got this guy running our game?
Yeah. And
eventually, even enough people that may have had vested interests within the game, eventually enough of the pros went, we want to give Barry Hearn a chance.
Yeah.
So it has nothing to do with me. It wasn't me going, you should have... Eventually it was actually them all going, look what he's done with darts, why don't we give him a chance? We're not going anywhere ourselves.
Absolutely.
So now I think we now have...
a bright future?
Well, I think we've got the right person steering the ship.
Okay.
And I mean, he knows his job.
Yeah.
And it actually, we were trying to run the game and also promote the game amongst ourselves as an association. and it never worked. The business model never worked.